Hi there, I'm Stan Baker, one of the hosts of Circle Forum, along with Shelley Steele and Steve Young. A restorative conference for attendance? What's that about? Well, when things are not going right, a restorative response may be needed, and let me tell you, chronic absenteeism is student attendance that's not going right. So this is the work we're doing with a group of secondary staff, restorative conferences for attendance. We talk about fear of failure, fear of something different, fear of a scripted approach, fear of uncovering information that we can't deal with as educators. So if secondary attendance is a concern in your school or district, give this a listen. In this podcast, we talk about, first of all, preparing for a restorative conference for attendance that includes who needs to be there. Secondly, moving from a compliance model, we expect you to be there and here are the consequences for missing school, to a collaborative problem-solving approach. Be sure to visit our website, www.restorative.ca, for more ideas and suggestions for restorative practices in attendance. Let's join the conversation already in progress with Shelley, Steve, and me, Stan. Another bit of research that we're involved in currently is looking at secondary schools and coming up with a process that's very restorative. It's actually a restorative conferences for attendance. Let's talk a little bit about how that's been going.
I think it's a really different way of doing business for secondary school. I do love it because we are making these young adults be part of the process and have a voice, and as a result be part of the solution. But there is a lot of fear around doing something different, even though what we're currently doing to address chronic absenteeism in secondary school generally isn't working. There's a lot of fear to try something different.
There's a fear of trying something different for sure. But even the ones that we were working with, who believe that this may be a better way to go, they still have some fear about what may happen when they have these conferences. We have a conference and we hear lots of things and realize we can't do anything about everything they're telling us. So they're struggling with, we'll ask all these questions, but we may get a lot of answers that we don't know what to do with. So then what do we do? But that's just growing pains, I think. I think a lot of times for those people who are a little more adventurous in their strategies and their teaching and whatnot, they're willing to jump in with both feet, see what happens. If it gets messy and the first time or first couple of times, so what, we're learning as we go. We will eventually get to a point where we know this will be effective. But yeah, there is a fear of almost a fear of failure at a lot of the secondary levels, because I'm going to be judged. If this doesn't work, there's going to be people that judge, right?
And of course, our first restorative conferences were all successful right off the bat, right? Like we just stepped right in there and it worked out just perfectly. No, it didn't.
No.
We had to learn from those ones that didn't work, right?
We've all had some disasters and we can fall back on them. And I've had teachers that have tried it and it was an absolute disaster. But the ones that understood how it was supposed to work said, that's okay, I'll just go back and I'll try it again and we'll just keep doing this until it works. So it's not going to work the first time. So there is that trepidation, but it's getting them to try it first.
I wonder if it's also getting at asking the person what is the fear about? And that's not always a question we're used to asking people who are going to do things like this. But what is your fear? Is your fear about uncovering information you're not comfortable dealing with? Is your fear that it won't be successful and the student won't make a change? And I used to do this with students. You'd work through all your worst case scenarios and realize that you will survive at the end of it. And maybe we can come up with some solutions ahead of time about what if that did happen. But that may take away some of the fear if you explored it a little bit first with somebody that you trusted.
I like that idea. And part of what happens is that intuitively, when something's not working, something's not working, we want to get together and talk about it. And a lot of people have a very good way of doing that. And what we're suggesting is taking the time to prepare for this meeting effectively, and then running it with a bit of a script with restorative questions. We have this intuitive sense of doing this, and what was really interesting was in another context, one of the participants said in some social work that she's involved in, she said, I took on this scripted approach to a particular therapeutic approach. And at first it felt really awkward and very stilted. But what happened as I saw this going through is that every single time people felt very comfortable with the process and with the questions. And that's really something that we want to give. It's not just about how comfortable I feel as the teacher or the facilitator of this. How does the student feel? How does the parent feel? Who needs to be involved in all of these conversations? Because often we'll have the conversations and we don't have the right people in the room. So all of those things need to be part of this restorative conference for attendance.
I would challenge Stan, just at the beginning, you said we have these good conversations about attendance. I don't think we have good conversations about attendance without the restorative structure there. What we do is we have a reciting or repeating of expectations. What support do you need? I don't need, no, I'm good, I'll just come. And then we have some consequences if they don't. So we really don't have good conversations about attendance unless we're using this kind of structure to get at what other things might be going on and making the student and the family feel part of the process and part of the solution as well.
No, I think you're spot on. That's how the conversations go. It's the inclination to talk about
Yes.
it, but then the conversation goes exactly to where you're saying, which is, okay, and you know that you have to be here every day and you have to be here on time. Okay, now go and do it without
Yes.
really getting into and talking about what's going on. So I agree with that completely.
And I think that, when I think of all those conversations I had over the years with families and whatnot, it was usually, it had this almost this feel of the school ganging up on the family. We've called you in here, and there's me, and there's a teacher, and there's an attendance counselor. We're all on one side of the table telling you what you have to do and your responsibilities are. Now, as you say, now you understand all that, now go and do it. As opposed to the restorative thing is, let's make a plan, and how are we going to follow through with this plan? And everybody has a responsibility as part of that plan, as opposed to all the responsibilities back on the family to make this work.
What you were talking about earlier, Shelley, is really like, here's the expectations. It's the compliance approach.
Yes.
And what we're
Yes.
saying is that the restorative conference for attendance is really a collaborative problem-solving approach. This is a shared concern. We're all heading in the same direction, and we need to have a conversation in a way that doesn't point those fingers and blame, nor is it helpful to say, so you know that you have to be at school every day. I know that already, right?
And some fall back on that compliance approach, but some are really starting to search out different ways. And this whole idea of developing relationships with families and making the families feel part of the educational process of your child seems to be the way some are looking. But of course, the effect of that may not be seen for a long time.
I think it's important for teachers to invest time in developing those relationships, because I'll tell you, it's a pain in the neck to have, say, 10% of your class missing, but not the same 10% every day. And so you're constantly trying to check who's got what have they caught up on, tracking things. Marking is a nightmare. And so it's going to take a little bit of investment. That's what we're saying with the restorative conference for attendance. It's going to take a bit of an investment of your time, and the payoff is worth it. It benefits you long run.
The other piece I think about in secondary school is we really pride ourselves in preparing students for their next stage of life, to be a good citizen, to be able to move forward with things. That this really is, and you hear it all the time, this is to prepare you, right? And that includes teaching. And when we're doing a restorative conference about anything, but attendance also, that is a teaching moment and a learning moment for students. But it really is about developing the whole person there. It's not just and that's what we pride ourselves on, that we're developing citizens that are going to go out and do good things in the world. And so this is part of that, is developing, taking responsibility, ownership. How can I be part of a solution? And the restorative conference is a nice way to do that with students.
We are very excited to be part of working with a school district to use restorative conferences for attendance. It takes a shift in our mindset and means we need to build trust in our student and parent participants. Why not even send out the restorative script beforehand so everyone knows what's coming? Talk about building trust. Be sure to visit our website, www.restorative.ca, for more ideas and suggestions for restorative practices in attendance. It is a courageous act to become vulnerable in taking a step like restorative conferences for attendance. Be strong and be courageous.